In the footage you're about to see, I'll ask a group of 5th grade students to respond to a work of art they've never seen using the See, Think, Wonder routine, tapping into the dispositions, observing and describing, reasoning with evidence, and questioning and investigating. I'll ask the questions, what do you see? What do you think is going on? And what does that make you wonder? So we're going to take some time right now to do our See, Think, Wonder routine. We're going to really explore this work of art together. And we're going to let our observations guide the interpretations that we make, the explanations that we make, and the wonders that we ask. Let's start by taking a very slow look. I'd like you to let your eyes scan the whole surface of the sculpture. You might look here in the foreground, at the bottom of the sculpture. You might slowly move up to the middle of the sculpture. And then you might look at the top of the sculpture and into the background, as far back as you can see. What are the main things that catch your eye? And what are some of the details that take a little bit longer to notice? What do you see in this work of art? Shantice?
I see diagonal lines.
Diagonal lines. Where do you see the diagonal lines?
On the people's legs and on the horse leg.
Would anyone like to add on to that observation?
The guns is making like a diagonal line.
I see diagonal lines on the drumsticks to describe that they moving.
So we're noticing some of the diagonal lines.
I see a lady up top.
Would you like to describe her in any more detail?
She flying in the sky.
I see the drummer boy in the line, in front of the line.
I see stars on top, on the left and right corner.
I see sleeping bags or something rolled up on the people's backs.
As the conversation progressed, I was really pleased by the way the students persisted in observing and describing the sculpture. The more time I gave them, the more they observed and described. So let me summarize some of the things we've talked about so far. We've talked about the fact that there's this large horse, and then there's a man riding the horse. He's holding a sword. And then behind him are all of these people. We've also noticed that there is a figure overhead. We've noticed the lettering here. Then we've noticed lots of details about the men who are walking. Canteens, backpacks. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about this memorial sculpture. So this memorial sculpture is here to remind us of a significant event in U.S. history. This sculpture is to commemorate the 54th Massachusetts Volunteer Regiment. This regiment was the first regiment of Civil War soldiers who are African American who gathered in the North to fight on behalf of the North in the Civil War. They were led by Colonel Robert Gould Shaw, a young officer. Teachers new to artful thinking are often surprised when we wait to share information about the work of art, and they wonder when and how much is ideal. With a work of art whose subject is grounded in history, I've found that it's helpful to give students a little bit of information after they've had a chance to observe and describe. That way, when they begin to reason, they have a general context in which to base their thinking. And now I want us to think about this sculpture and this event. What do we think is going on in the sculpture? I'd like you to jot down some of the things that this sculpture makes you think. So if you would now turn to your thinking partner and talk to them about what this sculpture makes you think. What do you think is going on? During the think part of the routine, students share their interpretations. I ask them to ground their thinking in evidence by asking the question, what do you see that makes you say that? I want students who are novices talking about art to build confidence voicing their thoughts. This requires a level of trust in the students and in the process.
I think the lady on top of their head is praying for them so they can win.
What do you see that makes you think that?
They're marching in the war, to the war.
You're putting it all together, the fact that there are these men who are dressed like soldiers, they're marching, it seems like they're going to war, and because you know how dangerous war is, this figure overhead might be praying for their safety and for them to win. Thank you, Kevin. Izzy,
Maybe the horse got frightened
what do you see that makes you say that?
because its eyes are wide open and its mouth is wide open too. And people usually do that when they're frightened.
I said I think that one of the leaders get killed when leading.
What makes you think that?
The lady up top, she looks like she is like following them to.
So this woman might actually be assigned to the man who's leading, Colonel Shaw. And that makes you think that maybe it's kind of a premonition that he's going to die.
I think that they just won the war and they're going back to their base.
What do you see that makes you say that?
The drummer boy is leading them back.
What does this work of art make you wonder? If you've written one question, try to really push yourself. Think deeply. What else are you wondering? See if you can write more than one question.
I wonder if the drummer boy is tired of drumming.
I'm wondering if the man is the boss of new soldiers or the soldiers are slaves.
I wonder why only one man has a sword but the rest of them have guns.
I wonder if they're going to a war, where is the drummer's boy's gun? I wonder, does this picture relates to the book called Hold the Flag High?
Lots of fascinating things that you would like to investigate about this sculpture. It sounds like many of us would like to know what is really going on here. We're wondering some of the details about where they were. Were they at the beginning of the war? Were they at the end of the war, marching home? What is the relationship between the men who are marching and Colonel Shaw? Where is the drummer boy's gun? And it sounds like you've read a book in class, Hold the Flag High, and you're wondering if this connects to that story. I look for themes in their questions and share a story or piece of information to contribute to the conversation. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of the story behind the 54th. So in the year of 1863, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. I told the story of Colonel Robert Gould Shaw and the 54th Massachusetts Regiment marching through Boston Common, fighting at Fort Wagner, losing the battle, and for many their lives, but ultimately winning the war. Abraham Lincoln credited the 54th Regiment for their valor. He said if it wouldn't have been for the bravery of these men going into battle and inspiring so many other African Americans to join the war may have had a very different outcome. After the story, I try to keep thinking active by asking what else they're wondering or sharing something I'm wondering. So I am wondering, what are you going to remember about this sculpture, about our conversation together, about the events around this sculpture? Maybe it's something you would tell your family later tonight.
I'm gonna remember that even though they lost the war, they still was brave.
I'm going to remember that some of the people were risked their lives for freedom.
You've done an amazing job observing closely, thinking, developing your reasons based on evidence, explaining what you think is happening, making interpretations of the artwork, wondering and asking questions. You have thought very deeply about this work of art today.